beneficent, the most merciful. I bear witness that there is but one God, whose proper name is Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is his messenger. I greet you, my beloved brothers and sisters, in the greeting words of peace. My PowerPoint is not working. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Let me try this again. So,
It's not working.
Brothers and sisters, thank you so much for tuning in today. Thank you so much to gotkushTV, and thank you to our dear brother Shakara. Thank you for the compliment, brother. I like that. That made me feel good. And thank you to Sister Jendai for that fantastic presentation. I rarely get nervous when it comes to speaking, but Sister did such a good job that I was actually beginning to wonder, how do you follow that? So I will make an effort to say something about the subject matter, which is Black Lives Matter, Black Power, and reparations. And brothers and sisters, you know, I think it's really important that when we are looking at something like Black Lives Matter, it's critically important that we understand that we can't reduce something like that to a mere slogan, and that we have to understand the context in which we as a people are, and how we currently exist, and who we are, and what is our true character or our true nature. And so I wanted to begin really by saying to us that the universe in which we live is composed almost completely of what some astronomers and scientists call dark energy, or sometimes they say dark matter. And whether we as a people appreciate this or not, because many of our enemies appreciate this, the original man and woman, me and you, the Black people, are made up of this dark matter or black substance. We actually produce this substance in abundance. You know, have you ever wondered why when you break open a yellow banana and leave it for a little while sitting, it turns brown? This different pigmentation comes into it. Why all of the natural substances, be it flour or sugar or any of them, they all come in that form of blackness and darkness, whether it's molasses and the grains. It's not an accident. And that when you denature these things, when you take away the vitality and the real substance of these things, the things that give health and real benefits, they are denatured and literally become poison. It's critically important, brothers and sisters, that we understand that humus, H-U-M-U-S, is the dark organic material that makes up the topsoil of the earth from which everything gets its life and grows. The word humus has the same root as the word human, meaning a dark or black human being. Those who have bought into the question or devalued Black people to such a degree that now it's a question about the value of Black lives and whether Black lives actually matter, to the point where some of us are even asking this question in ourselves now. And now it's been or reduced to a slogan. And what we need to understand is that without Black lives, none of those lives, those other lives on this planet, would matter, because Black life is matter. Not a case of does Black life matter? Black life is matter. It's the original matter from which all matter emerges. Black life is the matter from which all other forms of life spring. As original people, we are the mothers and fathers of all the races on our planet, including the brown, the yellow, the white, plus every mixture in between. These facts, by the way, brothers and sisters, are all borne out by the study of history, the origins of man, through the study of biology, race, anthropology, genetics, human and animal species, all of the religions and the various cultures. It's not an accident that every form of life, whether human, animal, or plant life, has its origin in the triple darkness, in other words, in the total blackness of the womb of the mother giving birth. The condition that has to be present, use that term, the condition that has to be met in the womb of the creature or the woman gestating the new life is the same condition of triple darkness found in the earth where a seed is to be planted. These are not accidental things. And we can scientifically back up and prove what we're saying at no limit of time. Again, it's not an accident that the substances which are called fossil fuels and which have provided most of the energy that has powered this world up to this point are all intensely black, such as coal or crude oil and other carbon-based materials. Black Lives Matter must never be reduced to a mere slogan, but must be understood in the context of our real value to humanity. Brothers and sisters, you know, I've been observing some of this which has been unfolding on our planet for the last several weeks. And it pains me to see that as a people, we seem somewhat reluctant to delve into our true nature and our true identity. And as a direct result of our reluctance to plumb the depth of self, we continue to suffer at the hands of others who are very aware that we are lacking in a knowledge of self, that they know us better than we know our own selves. And I think when my sister Jendai was speaking, one of the things that she talked about was how some of us are so comfortable today as so-called Black British or, you know, African Caribbeans and whatever, not seeming to appreciate that we went through a destructive process called enslavement, where we were robbed of every single facet of what goes into making a human being, to the degree where in the House of Representatives in America in the 18th century, you had an individual by the name of Henry Berry boasted that they had cut off every avenue of light to the mind of the Negroes. I want you to think about that statement. We have cut off every avenue of light.
Sorry, brother. Yeah, I don't mean to interrupt you as you're in mid-flow. I just wanted to check. Are you changing any slides? And if
No, sir.
You haven't.
No,
okay,
sir.
just making sure
So
because we wasn't seeing.
I'm just a novice when it comes to the PowerPoint.
That's fine. I'm just making sure that we're getting the fullness of your presentation. But
thank you, brother.
I apologize.
Thank you so much. No problem, brother. Every avenue of light. You know, in this context, light here represents knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. And when you cut off knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, when you cut off light, you are effectively leaving the people in complete darkness, in other words, ignorance. And then 100 years or so ago, they say, okay, all you Negroes, these the terminology that they used to call us, you are now free. And in our freedom, they became our teachers and they incorporated us into their systems. And as my sister said, we seem very comfortable trying to fit in and get ourselves more and more enshrined within the system. But then I want you to reflect. And my leader and teacher, who is the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and I make no apology in saying that I am a follower of a Black man who is my leader and teacher. He posed a question to us in the Nation of Islam and to the wider Black community. He asked the question, if a man won't treat you right, what makes you think that same man will teach you right? If a man will ill-treat you for over 400 years, destroy you systematically as a human reality, why is it that we seem to think today that we are so educated, we're so wise, and we've got these scholarships from these schools and these people, and that we have been taught right? I'm saying, brothers and sisters, you know, because I can remember being a youngster in my 20s and in my 30s and thinking that I knew so much. But as I'm blessed to mature in age, I'm realizing just how little I know and just how much there is to know and just how much I as an individual need to humble myself and once again become a student of life, and in specifics, my own personal growth and development, my own personal life. Because brothers and sisters, I say with all humility, we don't know what many of us think we know. So here we are as a people in this condition where we are asking about Black Lives Matter. And I'm saying to you that that's such a crazy question when you understand that without us, nothing and no one could exist. And I'm not going to try and spoon feed anybody here this evening, but I'm challenging all of us who are listening to really begin to study and to do some research and look at many of the modern technologies that we take for granted today. And I've seen white people on the internet talking to Black people saying things like, oh, well, if you don't like it, why don't you go back to Africa because you're using the white man's computer? And there's some really ignorant ones come and say, yeah, and you're wearing the white man's suit. You know, let me tell you something, brothers and sisters. You know, again, we must understand that we were the first people to put on clothes. And when we were wearing silks and had on the floor heating in Egypt, when Egypt was in its decline, the Caucasian white man was in the caves and hillsides of Europe grunting, not knowing how to bury his dead. Now, you may not know this, but he knows it. And that's why he has a culture that talks about himself being a caveman, and he's just out of the caves. But our history, our culture, our ancient existence on this planet knows no date. There is no anthropologist, no historian that can give you a birth record for the Black man or the Black woman. In the Bible, we are called the Ancient of Days. Brothers and sisters, I want to move on. I'm hoping I'm not going to be that long. I want to move on to this issue, Black power. See, what is Black power? Do we really think again that Black power is some slogan holding our black fist up in the air and somehow that's going to make people take notice of us, or people are going to, if we grow our hair in a particular style or something of that nature, that people are going to respect us? You know, very rarely on this planet do you ever hear anybody really having to talk about white power. Very rarely do you hear anybody having to talk about brown power or yellow power. Why? Because white people, brown people, and yellow people exercise power as a matter of course. We only talk about power because we've been so reduced in our power that we no longer know what that power is or what it really ought to look like or what it is in practice. So we do a lot of talk about it, but very few of us dare to imagine practicing Black power. Brothers and sisters, this universe that we live in is the Black man's. We are the most powerful creatures in the universe. That's who we are. And again, I say to you, others know this. Some of us wonder, why do they oppress us so much? Why are they always on the Black man? Why are they always trying to keep us down? Why are they destroying the Black family? I thought we were free. Why is it that we have to face racism in school, racism in the workplace, racism at the hands of law enforcement, everywhere we go, in the mental institutions, in the prisons? Why is it that we're always so targeted? It is because others know something about us that we don't necessarily know about ourselves. In the Nation of Islam, brothers and sisters, we are taught that the original man is the Asiatic Black man. And let me just stop there very quickly, because this third planet from the sun, again, the word earth is an English word. It's English, if you understand anything about lexical language, English is a very new language on our planet. It's brand new. It's like a baby language. In fact, it's called a bastardized language because it has no root of its own. It's taken from a multiplicity of other people's languages, which is why when you look at an English word and you want the base of it or the root of it, you've got to go and search for the root of it in Latin or some other language, High German or some other Sanskrit or something of that nature. You've got to go and look somewhere else for the root because it has no root of its own. So Asia, we're taught, was the original name for the planet Earth, which is where you get now Melanesia, the middle of Asia, which they've made into the Middle East, East Asia, which is what we call today Africa, and Western Asia, and so on and so forth. This is what we called it as original people back into the eons of time. But of course, we don't know that today. And when we hear Asian today, we think of South Asian people, we think of Indians or Pakistanis or other people of that nature. And we think that we're trying to muscle in on somebody else's territory, when in reality, we are the originals of that. And these are recent comers who have taken this title or taken this identity, and we think that we don't have that identity, and if we use that identity, somehow it's using somebody else's language or somebody else's terminology. So the original man is the Asiatic black man, the maker, the owner, the cream of the planet Earth, God of the universe. Brothers and sisters, I'm saying that as a people, we're gods. We're not just some low down people. They know who we are. We are the gods. Our ancestors were the gods. We are directly related to the originator of the heavens and the earth. We are those people. And other people know it, as I said, but we don't necessarily appear to know it. We need to know and understand, brothers and sisters, this planet that we live on, because this is our home. We need to understand how the womb of the female mimics the universe that we live in, and why there is this correlation between the child being in that triple darkness of the womb and why all of the planets are coming out of that dark space called space. And you can look in the sky and you say a blue sky and you wonder, what a beautiful blue sky. Let me go up and try and reach it. But as high as you go, you will never find blue, because blue is the color of exception, and it's caused by a gas called ether, which gives the appearance of blue. You look in the deep blue sea, put your hand in it, pick up some of the water, look for the blue. There's no blue. It's a deception. But blackness is the reality of what's really there. And melanin is what you and I have in abundance. We're soaked in it, produced from our pineal gland, and that's our God force that we need to get back in touch with and in tune with in order to understand who we are. Brothers and sisters, it's imperative that we understand the planet on which we live. The total area of the land and water of this planet that we live on is 196,940,000 square miles. The circumference of the earth is 24,896 miles. The diameter, in other words, a through line going right the way through, is 7,926 miles. The area of the land is 57,255,000 square miles. The area of the water is 139,685,000 square miles. And I can go on. All of this planet belongs to the original people, belongs to us. I'm saying that because I know, sometimes that, okay, well, yeah, Leo, that sounds grand and that's so big or whatever. But what I'm saying is that the whole planet belongs to us. But right now, we can't point to a couple of acres. And by the way, much of the land that's found today on the continent of Africa, which, by the way, Africa is not like the be-all of anything. Africa is our throne. The planet Earth is our home. Africa is our throne. The planet Earth is our home, the totality of it. The 12 million square miles of Africa is our throne. But the whole thing belongs to us, brothers and sisters. And what I'm saying is, it's critically important that we as a people, when we start talking about black power, we've got to understand that the only way we can begin to exercise any kind of black power is when we get some of this earth that we can call our own. And many of the African countries, which we know that all of the borders were drawn by Caucasians who invaded that continent and drew all of these lines on the continent. And now many of us on the continent are divided based on these lines, on natural divisions and on natural lines. But much of the land on the continent is not even in the hands or the ownership of the original black man and woman on the continent. Much of the continent and the resources in the land and the minerals and the wealth in the land is controlled from Washington, controlled from Westminster, controlled from Milan, controlled from Paris, controlled from all of these, remotely controlled from all of these other places. And now China is moving in and taking more and more control. So Beijing is now in the mix. And we don't seem to understand as a people that without land, we can never, ever manifest or exercise real and genuine black power. How does that make itself manifest, say, in the United Kingdom? Here we are. They say now nearly, I don't know, maybe 70 years since Windrush, something like that. But we can't show one building that we can say that's ours. And in fact, if the Japanese tourists come here and start taking their pictures, running around, looking at all of the various edifices in the country, they can't find somewhere where they can come and say, this is the black place where black people own, that we possess it and it's ours. Yet, in every major city in this country, you will find a Chinatown. And you can't go into no Chinatown and tell the Chinese no foolishness about, oh, you Chinese, you're racist, you don't mix, you know, why do you have to have your own Chinatown? No, they would laugh you out. You can't go into the Asian community and talk that kind of nonsense to Asians, because Asians will laugh you out. You can't go into the Jewish community and talk that, they will laugh you out. But here we are, black people, black being 100% diametrically opposed to from white than brown. We're further away from white than yellow. We're further than anyone else, but we're the only people who have been so miseducated and hoodwinked that we think that the only way for us to make progress in life and to become successful is to integrate ourselves into white culture whilst disintegrating in our own cultural reality. And then we wonder why we continue to suffer, and why people don't respect us, and why we keep going to tables to negotiate with people who possess land, who possess power, who exercise power, and we're going with our empty hands and wondering why they don't respect us. Our sister, Billie Holiday, wrote a song, and in that song she said, God helps the child who has his own. Did you know, brothers and sisters, that God is not coming to our rescue as long as we refuse to have our own? And that black power is about having your own and being unapologetic. I heard a rumor that some people were saying, you know, why have you got the Nation of Islam involved in the reparations lockdown? You know, are they going to be there on the 1st of August and all this kind of stuff because, oh, they're racist? Let me tell you something. Are racist? No, brothers and sisters. You know why they label us like that and they want you to turn away from us? Because, by the way, black people, we are such beautiful human beings. I don't care what we call ourselves. Africans, Caribbeans, Brazilians, Black Americans, you know, I'm not interested in our little labels. But we're such a beautiful people that even in spite of what has been done to us in the way of evil, and that's what it was, it's evil, and that's what it continues to be, evil, nothing else, no accident. When you all watch the video of the so-called policeman with his knee on George Floyd's neck, you were looking at pure, unadulterated evil. He knew exactly what he was doing. He was comfortable doing it. You could have passed him a burger and he could have ate it while he killed that black man. And they do that every day. The difference is that this one was caught on camera. So the reality, my dear brothers and sisters, is that you and I have to appreciate that as a people, despite all of that and what's happened to us, we are still the most beautiful, still the most kind, still the most loving, still the most caring. This is who we are as a people. And believe it or not, there is not a racist bone in black people. That's why they have to convince you that we in the Nation of Islam are trying to teach you hate. Imagine people who've been through what we've been through, yet you need somebody to come and teach you to hate. You think you have to go to the Irish people and teach them to hate when Westminster was controlling Northern Ireland? No, you didn't have to do that. Nobody had to go and teach them nothing. And they didn't relax into complacency and oppression like we do. They started blowing people up. And people look just like them. You couldn't tell an Irishman and an Englishman apart unless they started talking. Palestinians and their suffering, they blow themselves up. But nobody, brothers and sisters, have suffered like the black man and woman yet. We are the ones who our languages, can't we all just get along? Our language is always trying to, am I not a man as well? Hands up, don't shoot. I can't breathe. Please, brothers and sisters, the day must come when we stop this, because this is not a manifestation of black power. Black power is when a black man begins to act as a man, in other words, recognizing that he has to take charge of his own destiny. He has to have what other men have, and that's how you force other men to respect you. We have to have our own schools. We have to have our own economic development. We have to have our own army, and not allow somebody to reduce what we do to a sign being held up by anybody. And because other people hold up a sign or put it all over the news and whatever, we think, oh, we've arrived. No, brothers and sisters. It's time for us to begin exercising black power. Black power must become a real thing, and we mustn't be embarrassed about it. They have made us to feel ashamed of the idea of having something that we can call our own. You got black people even will accept this foolishness of white people looking you in the face and telling you, oh, when I see you, I don't see color. I beg your pardon. When I look in the mirror, I see a black man looking back at me. And guess what? I like what I see. I love that black image. And many of us, it would appear, are still suffering from this self-hatred, where we would rather be anything other than ourselves. And I'm not blaming us, brothers and sisters. The tremendously wicked thing has been done to us. And in order for us to come back to ourselves, we have to come and get together among ourselves. This is what the 1st of August is all about. It's not about, as my sister said, begging the government for a little money, but it's about galvanizing black people from all over the country, galvanizing black people all over the world to recognize that we can repair, we must repair, and we can do it ourselves. And in our repairing ourselves and coming back into the knowledge of ourselves, you'd be surprised how quickly you see some people coming to try to assist, because when you come into the real knowledge of yourself and who you are and our power, it forces others to deal with us in a different form, in a different way, brothers and sisters. This is our planet. And we controlled it for millennia. We controlled it for thousands. We controlled it for millions. We controlled it for billions of years before the white man was even a thought. And by the way, just to be clear, we produced the white man. The white man is our child. They are our children. And they know this. The wise among them know this. And the scripture says, honor your mother and father so your days may be long. And because they've been dishonoring their mothers and fathers, because they've been kicking us around and ill-treating us, that's why their world is now coming to a close. That's why their world is now ending. And what you and I have got to do, brothers and sisters, is move out of the way, because it's not ending for us necessarily, unless we keep misidentifying who we are and keep getting in the way of the wrath of our Father, Almighty God. And so as I begin to wind down with this, I want us to understand that all of the scriptures that you find in the Bible, that you find in the Holy Quran, that you find in all of those ancient scriptures, we are the authors. Now, I'm saying this because one of our problems today is that many of us today are so fed up and tired of fake and false religion that we throw away the whole concept of religion, not realizing that we are the people of God and that we are spiritual by nature, and that people have taken those scriptures that we are the authors of and that we wrote, and they've now tampered with those scriptures, doctors those scriptures in order for the scripture to fit a particular narrative that they want. And what we do is, because we have suffered at the hands of those who have done that, be they Christians or so-called Muslims and others, we throw the baby out with the bathwater. So my relative drowns in the River Thames. And from that day on, because my relative drowned in the River Thames, I give up drinking water. No, brothers and sisters, the water is good. But what happened to my relative, you can't blame the water. What happened was because the water was not understood in terms of what it can do. It can give life, but it can also cause death. God gives life and he causes death. And so we have to understand that there is an element here that we're missing when we reject God and when we throw away the scriptures, which all of it comes from us and which other people have used for nefarious purposes. Brothers and sisters, we have to become nation builders. And the nation that we build has to be based on freedom, justice, and equality. And the nation that we build has to encompass the sun, the moon, and the stars. That's why we use this flag. That's why this flag was given to us by our founder, because it's not a local thing. It's not a small thing. It encompasses the entire universe. And let me say this to us, because again, we're so caught up on labels that because I'm a Muslim, I mustn't like my Black Christian brother or sister. I mustn't like my Rastafarian brother or sister. But these are labels, brothers and sisters. We are one people with one God, one earth, one universe. We are one. But it's because of our miseducation why we now will fight and kill one another over labels, not looking beyond the label and looking at the content. Many of you listening to me, you might be a bit disturbed by my tone or whatever. If that's the case, I apologize. I don't mean to be disturbing to you. But if you're honest, what I'm saying to you reverberates and vibrates within you, and you know that it's the truth. And that's what we should be interested in. Truth, nothing else. This ain't about show and pretense and messing about and hoodwinking people and trying to trick people into some crazy religion. This has got to be about truth and our relationship with the Creator, that energy, that force, that power that's in the universe that vibrates through every single one of our bodies. And we know that there's something greater and more to us than what meets the eye. When we unite on that basis, when we come together on that basis, then we become an awesome people. Our people, just out of slavery, built over 60 towns in so-called United States of America. This was one of them, what they call Black Wall Street. And because of jealousy and envy by white people, because Black Wall Street wasn't just some little town off on the corner somewhere. Black Wall Street was rivaling white America in terms of its genius, in terms of its wealth, in terms of its productivity, in terms of the example that it was setting for America. And white people became so envious and so jealous that they absolutely manufactured an excuse and went in there and destroyed it and killed in the process many, many hundreds, if not thousands, because to this date, they don't know the number because, of course, our lives are so cheap to them that they don't count our dead. But Black Wall Street, brothers and sisters, where we have to go back to. Many of us talk about the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey. We've got to go back to Marcus Garvey's vision and build nation. We have to have an army of Black men and Black women, highly disciplined, to defend and protect our businesses, defend and protect our homes, defend and protect our women and our children. I don't want any of the sisters to get upset about Black men taking care of you. Some of us have become so independent. Which Black man? Nobody, we don't need nobody to take care of me. Come on, sisters. We got to reform the Black family. We've got to reproduce a Black family. Right now, there's a huge divide between the Black man and the Black woman. There's a huge divide between the elders in our communities and the Black youth. Bob Marley used the term the generation gap. And we've got to bridge all of these gaps. We've got to fill all of these vacuums. Again, that's what the 1st of August is all about. And I hear some of the young people saying they're coming. And I hope they come. And I hope when they come that those of us who have the opportunity to speak to them and address them, because you know what today's program is about, it's about grounding, it's about learning, it's about us having those big conversations. And we have to rekindle these relationships by beginning to have these conversations, brothers and sisters. And as I begin to close, we can't be embarrassed over producing boys and girls who are disciplined human beings. You know, many of us, we like to blame our children today for some of the things that we see going on in the society. Our children who we produced. But remember, brothers and sisters, the fruit never falls far from the tree. So whatever our children are today, whatever we are producing today, if they're killers, if they're stabbing one another, if they're shooting one another, if they're taking drugs, if they're tattooed from head to toe, if they're pierced from head to toe, if they're doing all of these things that some of us frown on, we have to not so much look at them, but we need to take a look at ourselves. Because somewhere along the line, we've taken our eyes off the prize. We've taken our eyes, and by the way, the prize is our youth. If our movements and what we're about and what we're doing today is not about the youth, believe me, there's a term they use in America, I don't even know what it means, but we're whistling Dixie. If it's not about the youth, if it's not about the future, then we are wasting our times. And we've got to get back these youth, brothers and sisters, because we produce them, and whatever they're manifesting today, it's as a result of something that we messed up on. And what we want to do is to take back control of our young people. And the government is working 24 hours, 7 days a week with social services and other agencies to take our children away. This is absolute plan. This is when we talk about the Mangamizi, this is because it's not a Holocaust or a hell of a cost that took place historically. It's ongoing in that there are machinations and plans right now to disenfranchise us of our own children and to keep doing these things to us so that we can never, ever be a proper nation. These young children must ultimately become men and women, powerhouses for reform and change and security. And so, my dear brothers and sisters, if you want to know in truth what reparations looks like, you know, I deliberately chose today that I'm not going to really go too deep into that, because we got one of the premier reparationists on the planet. Sister Jenda is one, but our dear sister Esther, who will follow me, she is the person who will really give you the deepest, most profound understanding of what we're talking about when we're talking about reparations. But all I will say about it is, what does reparations look like? And I'm a simple kind of person, you know, and so I intend to really keep it simple. But this is what reparation looks like. It's a Black man, woman, and child. And I'm saying to you, brothers and sisters, because many of us, it seems now, like we really frown on this idea. It's like we don't seem to understand that the family is the cornerstone of nation, and that we got too many single mothers, we got too many brothers incarcerated, we got too many of us just loafing on the street corners, we got too many of us engaged in criminality and madness, and not focused on the idea of family. Without a strong family, if we keep allowing others to teach us and miseducate us to not consider what a real family is, and introducing all these different types of families now, which are not families at all. This is the family that Almighty God, Allah, put in place. And if you want to go on about LGBTQ and all the rest of it, and allow that to divert us away from what we should really be focused on, I'll just close and say it like this. Just remember, brothers and sisters, the hypocrisy and the ungratefulness of the so-called homosexual, the so-called transgender person, the so-called, you know, lesbian or gay man, because none of them could be here unless they came via the agency of a mother and a father. And so while we celebrate all of this diversity, understand that if that was the diversity that was in place, you wouldn't be here. You're here because of a man and a woman getting together. And Almighty God did not make a mistake when he put man and woman together. Male and female created he them both. And brothers and sisters, don't let people hoodwink you and fool you into thinking that God is so archaic and so stupid and so foolish. The reason why our planet is convulsing right now, and you're looking at weather patterns and things going on, earthquakes and pestilence in diverse places. COVID-19 ain't no accident. And I'm saying to you in humility, we haven't seen nothing yet in terms of what's coming on this planet and what we're going to be afflicted by unless we come together and begin to rebuild the Black family. I thank you, brothers and sisters, for allowing me this time to speak with you. And I hope that something that has been said is of benefit. And I hope that, you know, this is the beginning of a process of dialogue that will not end, and that gotkushTV will become staple in our household, because these types of platforms are what we need today, and these types of conversations are what we need. And believe me, we can't get enough. For those ones who love to say, well, we're fed up of the talking, man, we want some action. Yeah. Let me tell you something. Before we run out and get into so-called action, the scripture says, as a man thinketh, so is he. We got to think before we speak, before we act. But there's a condition, and there's a pattern, and there's a rule and law that we must follow in terms of how we do things, brothers and sisters. We can't just act without first thinking, without first talking, without first agreeing, so that we're all on the same page, so that when we move in unison, we move together, and we will be ultimately victorious. It's our time. The time that we live in is a time of tremendous change. And even though many of us are disturbed by the changes that we're witnessing, and some of us can't wait to get back to normal. Let me tell you something, brothers and sisters. If you ever go back to that so-called normal, then you are like those Jamaicans. I'm a Jamaican in Jamaica, which say, wanty, wanty, can't get it, no wanty. And what that means is that we as a people, we are the most dissatisfied people on this planet. And dissatisfaction brings about change. That's what happens when you have a whole set of people on the planet who are dissatisfied. Our energy brings about change. Our energy will even produce a child who is specifically born to bring about change. So when the change comes, don't be afraid of change, and don't try to get back to normal. No, it's not meant to get back to normal. It's meant to change. The future is not supposed to be recognizable as the past. And so embrace the change, brothers and sisters, because this is what many of us have been praying for. It's just that we don't necessarily recognize it in the form that we thought it would take. This change is happening because of us. Thank you for listening. May the Creator continue to bless you as I greet you in peace as I found you. Assalamu alaikum.